at a church. You want a civilized society, then why would you vote for a guy who bragged about going into teenage girls' locker rooms? Why would you vote for the guy who grabbing women by the genitals? Why would you vote for the guy who attacks Gold Star families, who says these Mexicans, they're rapists and bad people, and I suppose some of them are good people? Why would you vote for the guy who said he didn't respect John McCain because he was captured? Listen, I agree with you. I want a civilized society too. Donald Trump might be one of the most uncivilized politicians we've ever had.
You gave us Kamala, bro. You gave us Kamala. She literally locked people up.
How is she uncivilized?
How was she uncivilized? What is her qualifications? She was a do-nothing VP. She was the border czar.
Okay. Hold on.
Let's not forget her just locking up people in prison so that she could have more people to work on the highways.
That's also not true. So let's be factually accurate.
Also, you're a dude. When you talk to your bros, you're like, yeah, I can just go up and grab a. That's
first of all, I've never talked like that. I played 2 Division I sports. Number 2, yes, have heard
what sports did you play?
Different standards for different people.
Because in football, we said a lot of stuff, bro.
Well, but you're not president of the United States, and I'm not voting for you, and you're not a politician. Different standards for different people.
He wasn't president when he said that, was he?
But he ran for president. That's the whole point. If
I run for president, I've said a ton of crap. You can find on YouTube right now that I get arrested.
Okay, but you're not running for president, and you voted for this guy. Number 1. Number 2,
and I'd vote for him again.
Let's go back to Kamala.
Because he's the better candidate. Look, at the end of the day, here's what I'm worried about. Look, under Kamala, she is a socialist. I do not like socialism.
Give me a socialist policy that she ran on.
Socialist healthcare for all is one.
So you think wanting everyone in this country to have proper healthcare for their lives, you don't want that, but you're
how's that working? How's it
working? What's Donald Trump's healthcare policy?
Honestly, we should open up, be free. Like we should have a free.
What I asked you. You voted for Donald Trump. He's had 9 years. What's his healthcare plan?
Healthcare plan? Well, I'm hoping.
You're hoping. So he doesn't have one. So you voted for the guy who doesn't have a healthcare plan
versus the one that would socialize everything and raise my taxes even more. Tax bracket would go up. I'd be paying more money. I'm already paying over 50%.
Well, he gave $100 billion to the top 1% in this country. You are aware of that. Donald Trump did do that, and he doesn't have a healthcare plan. So let's move on.
But here's the thing. How much do you want to tax the top 1%? They're already paying a majority of the taxes.
You know what? I'll answer that question. I don't think a billionaire like a Jeff Bezos, one of the richest people in the world, should be paying a lower percentage on taxes.
Do you understand? Do you understand? So that $1 billion is literally tangled up into stocks and shares. He can't just sell all his shares of Amazon.
No,
crash overnight.
Who's going to buy those shares? We can get into the weeds, but my point is we shouldn't have the biggest tax breaks in the history of this country to the top 1%.
Why not just go flat tax? Make it fair for everyone.
I'd be totally okay with that. I wouldn't have a problem with that. Let's go back to Kamala Harris. You said she didn't accomplish anything. She was duly elected twice as the attorney general. She was elected as a senator. She was also the vice president. By the way, she was not the border czar. Mayorkas was the border czar. So with respect, you're factually inaccurate.
The border wasn't
that was Mayorkas. No, that was Mayorkas. He was the border czar. We need to be factually accurate. By the way, the vice president
on the border.
The vice president is not a policymaker. So
she's not a policymaker, but she was there to do something.
Mayorkas was the border czar, though. You called him the border czar.
But she was put in charge of fixing the border issue. Am I incorrect?
Mayorkas was the border czar, so I don't think that's factually accurate.
He did a horrible job.
What was it? Okay, but we've had issues at the border for decades and decades and decades. I could give you some good things that the Biden administration did. I can tell you that Donald Trump is ruining the country with tariffs. He's threatening to take over Greenland. He said the war would be over in 24 hours. How did that work out with Ukraine? He's rolled out the red carpet for Vladimir Putin. There is no peace in the Middle East. Everything in the grocery store is up except for eggs. He said he would lower inflation on day one. Why don't you criticize the guy who you still say that you would support?
He's been in office less than a year.
Oh, okay. So it's only been a year. It's only been a year. How about the 4 years he was president when he got us $8.2 trillion in debt? I don't hear you complaining about that.
Because we have an extra 10 million people here.
So he's only been here a year. So when he says the war would be over in 24 hours, was that a lie or did you believe him?
Oh, no, that was an exaggeration. You're not going to end a war in 24 hours.
Okay. So why would he say that?
We're not protesting Ukraine anymore. What's going on in Ukraine, actually?
Well, I'll tell you what's going on with the war. Donald Trump seems to roll out the red carpet on American soil for an evil, murderous dictator in Vladimir Putin.
But I thought Putin got him elected in 2016, right? Russiagate thing he did.
I didn't do, I'm not even a Democrat. I don't know what you mean. I didn't do that. I'm just asking you about Donald Trump's promises. You said you would vote for him again. You have a family, right? You have a family, right? You're a father. Okay. You have a daughter, if you don't mind me asking, Mark.
Honestly, that's one of the main reasons. The girls and the boys and girls sports. I think that was the linchpin thing for the election.
Okay. So hold on a second. Thank God we got that trans volleyball player. And that's more important than innocent people being murdered on the streets. That's more important to you.
Innocent people being murdered on the streets. Do you not remember the Summer of Love?
The summer. Okay. So now we're going to go back to Black Lives Matter.
You're going back to things. I'm just giving you an example of what they did. The Biden presidency was not a good presidency. It was not a good time.
Black Lives Matter protests didn't happen under Joe Biden, to my knowledge.
There were some uprisings going on.
Okay, but Black Lives Matter protests didn't happen under Joe Biden. You just mentioned Black Lives Matter protests, but tens of millions of people protested across the country. There was a small percentage of people that did some very bad things that I certainly don't condone, but that happened because of George Floyd.
2020, 2021.
Would you agree that Derek Chauvin was...
the George Floyd. Similar things.
Would you agree that Derek Chauvin is a murderer, and he was convicted of murder, and that was a murder?
Nuanced. I do think he acted incorrectly, but the maneuver he used was topped by the police department.
Not true. Not true. When someone is on their stomach and their hands are behind their back and they're handcuffed, you are not told to put a knee on their neck for 9 minutes.
Did he die from that, though?
There were two autopsies. Well, if you're asking me the question, I'll answer it. There were two autopsies conducted in that case. Both of those autopsies found the cause of death was homicide, meaning if you think it was drugs, which I think you're probably insinuating, that would mean that somebody would have had to have force-fed him drugs against his will, which didn't happen. Both autopsies
concluded the speedball in the car. He didn't take that speedball.
Both autopsies concluded it was a homicide, though. So if we're going by actual facts and evidence, Mark, both autopsies concluded it was a homicide. So yes, the knee on the neck clearly led to his death.
That's a contentious debate.
And wait, you're saying law enforcement, they're trained? I just want to understand, because I'm mesmerized by this. If you're on your stomach and your hands are behind your back,
that's a maneuver. Apparently, again,
if you're resisting, it is. But if you're not resisting, in that point, in that 9 minutes, George Floyd wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't resisting. All he was saying was, I can't breathe. Please, sir, kick your knee off your neck. That is not an appropriate thing to do, and you're not trained to do that.
I might be a bit misinformed on this. Did he not ask to be put on the ground?
Just because if he did or he didn't ask to be put on the ground doesn't mean that a knee should be on his neck for 9 minutes when his hands are handcuffed behind his back and he's not going anywhere. That's the point I was trying to make. But there are two fundamental differences between Black Lives Matter protests and January 6th. You had
George Floyd. Which one are we going on? January 6th was dumb. Like, you don't have to get a gotcha on that one. That was stupid.
Well, then you need to tell that to Donald Trump, because there's a lot of people that called it a tourist visit, and Trump called those people who beat cops hostages and patriots. The reason why
it was a tourist visit, there were some people who were just chilling, moseying around.
There were about 1,500 people that were prosecuted. Over half of those people, violent criminals, some of whom beat cops, some of whom sprayed them with bear spray.
How much time should they have done in prison?
It depends on the level of the crime, obviously, Mark. If you're telling me that
done 20 years, what about that Proud Boys?
Sure.
Again, I'm not.
Enrique Tarrio has done this show multiple times. I think he's an absolute piece of human scum. I can tell you that if you were one of the people that beat cops, do you know some of those officers have traumatic brain injury?
Was he even there?
He didn't have to be there to have been convicted for seditious conspiracy. He was an organizer. But going back to your question, if you beat a cop to the point where he almost died and he has traumatic brain injury, then I think you deserve decades behind bars.
So we're against beating cops now.
When did I ever say that I was for beating cops?
I'm just saying that it seems like the protests are very violent towards cops today.
What elected Democrat has ever endorsed beating police officers?
I don't know. Kamala, who put up the fund to
not true. She did not endorse. No,
that fund was literally set up to get criminals out.
So,
and if Trump would have set up the same, I can be critical of Trump for stupid shit too.
Okay, but Mark, hang on a second. I just asked you who endorsed beating cops. You said Kamala Harris.
But her fund
not true. What she did was she made sure that there was a fund so people would have the right to defend themselves, just like every January 6er had the right to defend themselves. That's not endorsing.
Rioters. They burnt down entire cities. They killed people. They literally did. What about that poor poor off-duty police officer who was shot. Where was that? Can't remember. Missouri, was it?
It's a terrible tragedy. We can always go back and forth and talk about Brian Sitnick. Why can't you just say
again, like,
it was terrible?
What we're failing to see is that both, I hate to say great people on both sides, but both sides play a role when they do stupid stuff that is violent. There are better ways to go about things. You can still vote your way out of things. Like the Republicans saying voting didn't matter. It does. You literally won the election. Right.
Can you name me a point where Kamala Harris ever endorsed violence? Because you just said that she endorsed beating cops. No, having a fund together.
Not to the point, but the fund for literally the most violent protests of my lifetime.
That's also not true. The fund that she allocated were not for the violent criminals. They were misdemeanors and people that were behind bars.
None went to violent criminals.
We had a fund that she put together to make sure that they had money to help defend themselves in a court of law, which, by the way, every person has the right
every person does.
And Donald Trump called the people who beat cops hostages and patriots. Do you see where I'm getting at here? That's endorsing violence.
Violent people. To be honest, I'm hoping he wasn't referring to the violent folks there.
He generalized every single person as hostages and patriots. He didn't say those who committed violent acts are not hostages and patriots. And he pardoned those people. He pardoned them. I mean, some of these people beat cops. Brian Sitnick died the next day. Some of those officers have traumatic brain injury.
But if we want to go by, did the autopsy? No, didn't he have a stroke?
The person who conducted the autopsy did an interview a week after. You can look this up if you don't believe me, and said that the state of the body that Brian Sitnick is in was next day believed that January 6th had something to do with it. He said that in an article where he was interviewed. If somebody thinks that he was pepper sprayed and he was beaten. So if nobody thinks hours later when he died it had nothing to do with January 6th, I don't know what to tell you.
Again, I'm not taking up for them, not taking up for the pardons. I do think that it was the issue was, you had a group of people who were dumb, who did dumb things, and they happened to be on that side. And then Trump, I guess, trying to appease his base, went and pardoned them.
Joe Biden didn't pardon anybody who committed violent acts during Black Lives Matter protest. He didn't call them hostages and patriots either. Democrats didn't storm the Capitol and try to overthrow a free and fair election. I didn't hear a fake electorate scheme coming from the left. I'm not saying there isn't violence on the left too, because obviously there is, but I don't think
Kirk.
Okay, but how is that the left?
Well, I mean, you guys kind of celebrated it like it was yours.
Name me one elected official, Democrat elected official that celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk. Just name me one.
Ilhan Omar.
No, she didn't. What did she say?
I'm not sure. I don't have it offhand.
If you're not sure, then why would you say that? It's Mark. This is what gets me angry. Mark, this is what pisses me off, with respect. You don't know what you're talking about. Ilhan Omar never celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk. What she said was, she wasn't. My question was, you just said there were Democrats that celebrated the death. My question
Democrats. That doesn't mean elected.
Name me one elected Democrat that celebrated.
One elected Republican who was at January 6th.
Okay, sure. I could name you multiple. I could name you multiple Republicans, incling the president of the United States,
who were violent. No.
Who celebrated,
telling people not to go there.
Who defended? What do you mean? It took Trump 5 hours to put out a video, Mark.
He put out a tweet that they deleted, that they literally took down.
They asked him for 5 hours. They asked him to put out a video. He refused to do so. They also had a
tweet that said, "Don't do it." He literally put out a tweet.
Wow. Okay. Well, Mark. No elected officials were celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. If you want to talk about some moron on Twitter or some idiots on social media that were celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, I think that's wrong. But there were no elected officials on the left. And Ilhan Omar did not. There is a difference between not wanting to celebrate Charlie Kirk's life. I don't want to celebrate Charlie Kirk's life, but I certainly didn't celebrate his death. Those are the statements that Ilhan Omar made. What you're saying is not factually accurate. She called out the violence. Look up the quote.
But why even say that?
Why? I'll tell you why. I think what happened.
He had discussions like you have?
No, he did not. And I'll explain why.
What did he do?
I think what happened to Charlie Kirk is awful. And I hope Tyler Robinson spends the rest of his life behind bars. It wasn't the left that did it. It was one deranged individual. That's number one. Let's be clear.
You and I can agree on that.
Number two, Charlie Kirk spread bigotry and hatred. He attacked Martin Luther King Day. He wanted it abolished. He attacked transgenders 24/7, said horrible things about African-American women, including Michelle Obama and others. The civil rights movement he thought was a bad thing. I could name you time after
There are
time.
a lot of black people who think the civil rights movement was.
Okay, well, again, we're talking about, we can give anecdotal evidence, but you asked me about Charlie Kirk.
Those are opinions,
Okay.
and you should celebrate the fact that he
racist.
opened it up for discussion to everybody.
Okay. Listen, you can say slavery was a great thing and I wish it came back. And Mark, would you say, well, those are opinions, have a debate? No, I would call that person a racist and a bigot. That's who Charlie Kirk was. I'm not going to celebrate his life. I don't think what happened to him, he didn't deserve it. I thought it was horrible. But I'm not going to sit here and celebrate the life of somebody who I think was a bad guy. Yes, that's my opinion. I think Charlie Kirk was a bad guy. Hence, there's a difference between celebrating his death, which, by the way, I got emotional on the air when he was killed. I thought it was awful. I still remember the videos. It's terrible. And for everybody else that was there that had to see it, it's awful. I feel for the family. It's terrible. But I'm not going to sit here and say he was a good man. I'm not going to sit here and say he was a good debater even. The guy just debated a bunch of 19-year-old ill-informed college students. He rarely would ever debate people his own age. I don't think he was smart as everybody made him out to be. And no, I don't think he was a good guy. But there's a difference. Now, you wouldn't say I'm celebrating his death, right?
No.
Because I'm not. Okay.
But there's also decorum, and there's a way to go about things.
Decorum? You support Donald Trump.
That's true.
My head's going to explode. You're talking to me about decorum, and you're talking about the guy who has nicknames for people he disagrees with, who attacks everybody. And you support that guy. Okay.
Can you take your hat off? Can we see your hairline?
Will you take your shirt off? If you take your shirt off right now, I'll take my hat off. Is that a deal?
What's it have to do? There's obviously clear implications between.
If you take your shirt off right now, I'll take my hat off. Okay.
Why do you want?
No, I'm not a lapdog to the radio station just because I'm on the radio station. So now that we've cleared that up, there's things.
Go ahead. Say a racial slur. You're not anyone's lapdog. Say it.
Say a racial
on
slur?
Radio. Yeah, you're not anyone's lapdog. Go ahead.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Oh, that means that there are people above you that make decisions that you have to listen to. So you're their lapdog.
Yeah, I think you're
their lapdog is what you're suggesting.
I work for myself, and that has nothing to do with race.
That's awesome.
Just because I
get paid to work with another industry doesn't mean that I'm their lapdog.
Okay, you're right.
What's this personal insult have to do with shit that you're not doing very well in this debate? Okay, you want to bring up Andrew Getty's really in your head.
We're on the air, Rob, so I know you've worked in radio before, so you know that there's certain words that you can't say. So
that's right, because you're a lapdog of the people that are issuing those policies.
Thank you. Okay, you said there's things that I'm not good at, and I'm just trying to point out to you that there's probably plenty of things that you're not good at either, like not being able to eat a salad. You're probably not good at that.
Ooh, a weight joke. Well, that's not true. I eat salads along with a bunch of other fattening foods, but I have been losing. Losing a bunch of weight. Now it's interesting because if we're going to go back, I seem to remember that you were the type of person that said you don't like to get into personal insults and stuff. I've said no such thing about you. I've only made the point that I don't think you're getting in depth in subjects, and now you're making it personal. Now I think everyone that's listening sees why you're doing this, and I could take it personally, but I'm being polite because you're on radio. So I'm being very polite here for you.
I appreciate that, Rob. So, Rob, you were pointing out things that you don't think I'm good at. Okay. Now we can move on. The reason why I was saying,
I want to talk about these allegations of your ex-girlfriend and how you treated her poorly. Can we talk about that?
My ex-girlfriend?
Yeah, I saw some sort of allegations that you treated a woman that you had some sort of relationship with poorly. Can we talk about that?
Completely not true.
Oh, that's not. I see posts online that suggest it.
Well, you know what? I see posts online that you're a pedophile. Does that mean you're a pedophile? I don't care.
Really? Can you show me the post that said that?
Okay, so Rob, have I ever
I can bring up the post if you want. Let's read it together. Let's read it together.
So Rob, have I ever?
You don't want to. You don't want to take it personal.
So you're going to read posts that people say about me, just alleged things that they say about me that are I've never been convicted of a crime or charged with a crime in my life, but yet you're going to take the argument of what people say, which, by the way, I don't pay attention to. People could say, people have called me a rapist. They've called me a pedophile. They've called me a woman abuser. People have said some of the worst possible things you could say about somebody, Rob. But the difference between me and you is if somebody went online and said you're a woman abuser or a pedophile, I would say, just like I've tried to say in this entire conversation, and this is the problem with you.
It's great radio.
No, it's not great radio. I think you're an idiot.
You brought it up. See, here's what's happening. You're scrambling because you wanted to make it personal. You wanted to make it personal.
It's going to go the way I want it to go, or you can leave. This is the fundamental difference between me and you. I don't just throw allegations at people because random people, Rob, say things online. That's the route that you want to go. It's a very ugly route, and it's stupid. So, Rob, let me just make this clear to you so that maybe we can move on to something else, okay? I've never been, forget about even being convicted. I've never even been charged with a crime in my whole life. Okay, Rob? So if you'd like to get back to a debate, which it doesn't sound like you really want to, I'm happy to do that. The reason why I went personal with you is because you went personal with me and said, there's things that you do that you're not very good at. We can go back and we can rewind the tape. I agree. There are things in my life that I'm not very good at. I am far from a perfect person. But when it comes to this, I think I'm doing a little bit better than you. So let's stick to the actual topics. And next time you're invited on Piers Morgan, or next time you're invited on a national, show, maybe, you know what, you're probably good enough to be on OAN. So I take that back. But
again, I want to make this point real clear. You're the person who brought this up. I only said about you're not doing good at going in depth into issues. You then decided to make it personal, which was outrageous. And if we're going to bring it about personal, about who I work for and I'm a lapdog and I don't eat salads, then why wouldn't it be fair game to talk about the things about you that's being said online?
Well, because
being unethical doesn't mean you can be unethical, and it doesn't have to raise to the level of you being convicted of a crime.
Here's the difference.
Do you want to read it? Do you want to read it, or do you want to move on to policy instead of being personal?
Sure. So here's the difference. So here's the difference, Rob. Okay. I'm not taking something off of social media that some random idiot says. I'm looking at a screen and I'm looking at you and I'm making an observation. Okay.
Can you take your hat off? Can we see your hairline?
Will you take your shirt off? If you take your shirt off right now, I'll take my hat off. Is that a deal?
What's it have to do? There's obviously clear implications between.
If you take your shirt off right now, I'll take my hat off. Okay,
why do you want to see me without a shirt on? Wow, look at that. Holy shit, I can barely see.
You just said a swear again.
Turn that light down. Turn that light down. Holy shit.
You just said a swear. You just said a swear 2 times. I've asked you multiple times to not swear on the air, and you've swore on the air again. I'm showing you that I am not an insecure person. Now, would you like to take your shirt off or not?
No, I'm not going to take my shirt off. I know that's something that you would be interested in.
No, I'm not.
I'm married. I'm married, Brian. Thank you, though.
You're interested in what's underneath.
I'm married, Brian. Thank you so much.
So now, Rob, why don't you take off your shirt?
I appreciate you hitting on me. I'm not looking for.
If I had a fetish for overweight middle-aged dudes who don't know how to have debates, who are lapdogs for Andrew Wilson, then maybe I would want to take you out on a date. So I want to talk to you guys about your online life and privacy. And you know how sending a message, an unprotected Wi-Fi, is like yelling your secrets in a crowded room, right? Well, a VPN is like moving that conversation sort of like into a locked soundproof booth. That's what private internet access, or PIA, does. It encrypts your internet connection, hiding your IP address and protecting your personal information and everything you do from online hackers and others that are looking to exploit your private information. This important coverage obviously protects you from networks such as coffee shops, the airport, and even the Wi-Fi at your own house. So I've been using PIA myself. It's great. I love how simple it is. You just open the app, really, pick a location, say New York or even another country, and with one click, you're connected through a secure tunnel. Boom, total privacy. Also great for streaming, of course. Some shows or sports events are blocked based on where you live, but PIA lets you access content from 91 countries and all 50 U.S. states. That means you can watch what you want wherever you are. This includes your favorite streaming services such as Disney+, Netflix, even Hulu. And here's a big one. One subscription protects unlimited devices. Your phone, your laptop, your tablet, your TV, even your whole household is covered. Plus, PIA has a strict no logs policy that's been proven in court and verified by Deloitte. So they don't track what you do, period. So PIA is rated excellent on Trustpilot and signed up as a totally risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So how great is that? Protect yourself online. Grab 83% off plus 4 extra months free using my link, which is piavpn.com/PTL. Again, that's piavpn.com/PTL for the best online privacy deal out there. I've been using it daily, especially when traveling or working on public Wi-Fi. I've been traveling a lot lately, and it's one of the few tools I can honestly recommend to everyone. Listen, this has gone very well. I appreciate you coming on, Rob. For the record, by the way, even though I decided not to do it, Rob was one of those people that wanted to debate me in Phoenix. And I said, okay, I'll ask some people around. And many people that I spoke to said that you don't have a following. Nobody knows who you are. And Alex Stein decided to debate me. And I said, okay, Alex is a good guy. He's got a following. You're the one who was willing to go to Phoenix to debate me. And I'm the one who told you in the end, I don't want to debate you because I think you're a jackass. And I'm saying that now live on the air. You're not a serious person. It's okay to have differences of opinions. I certainly don't mind that at all. In fact, that's why I wanted you to come on. But every single time I bring up January 6th, Rob, if you're still there, every single time I bring up January 6th, you bring up Black Lives Matter. You're just like Andrew. Every single time I bring up, the things that Donald Trump has said or done when the debate's supposed to be about Donald Trump, you want to bring up the Steele dossier.
How many live viewers do you have right now?
You want to bring up Joe Biden. How much do you weigh, Rob? How much do you weigh?
I weigh about 258. How many live viewers do you have right now?
And you're like what? You're like 5 feet tall, Rob?
I'm 5'8".
Thank you. Yeah, you're in great shape, Rob.
Okay, so, I'm in poor shape. Well. And you said that you have such a bigger audience.
Okay, this is what I do. And I'm happy to be able to drive to work every day and do this. And I appreciate you coming on. But at the same time, not a very good faith conversation, Rob. So you will not be debating me in Phoenix, Rob. I know you're dying to get some clout and debate some people, but you will not be debating me. So maybe you as the master debater can debate somebody else and you could talk about Black Lives Matter and the Steele dossier and Joe Biden, telling Trump to go back into the bunker. Those are very good debating talking points, Rob. You're very good at what you do. I appreciate you coming on. And, anytime you read something on social media, it must be true. You're a very intelligent person, Rob. I do appreciate you coming on. I'm trying to compliment you, by the way. I'm trying to end this conversation with a compliment. Now, I know you and Andrew will do 10 videos about me, and you'll dissect this because you don't have any other material to talk about. By the way, on this show, I've interviewed Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Caroline Leavitt, Vivek Ramaswamy, just to name a few. What is the biggest guest you've had in the last 6 months, Rob?
The biggest guest I had? How about sitting Congressman Dan Muser, sitting Congressman
Clint Thompson? Wow, those are huge gets, Rob. So I'm just telling you, as a left-leaning host, I've had 20 times the caliber of guests that you have. And by the way, I get them on my show pretty much every day. Unfortunately, you're the bottom of the barrel.
I mean, my goodness, you have it so.
Get him off.
You have such a low self-esteem.
You're not going to be debating me in Phoenix. Eat a salad and have a nice day. The number to call is 702-221-7283. Again, that number to call. I tried to get Rob to take his shirt off because I took my hat off. I'm not an insecure guy, right? I don't care. I like wearing hats. I've been wearing hats since I was 25 years old. And by the way, I had hair when I was 25 years old. So I just figured I would, he would return the favor and take off his shirt. I thought that would be a nice viral moment. I was trying to be funny, and Rob clearly doesn't have much of a sense of humor. I also told him not to swear on the air. He swore on the air multiple times. So that was breaking the agreement that we had. But I'm not really surprised. Anybody that is associated with Andrew Wilson, that's the kind of way they debate. You bring up January 6th, they bring up Black Lives Matter. Now what Rob will do, because he doesn't have any material, he had some congressman that I've never heard of before. That's his big get, because nobody wants to go on a stupid podcast.
Yeah, it's disappointing, man. You shouldn't be surprised, and it shouldn't require any praise for the libertarian portion of the alliance that ended up, breaking down at the last minute and deciding to vote for Trump, that we would be very upset with him for these actions. He really started to lose us after the bombing campaign against Iran, and now Venezuela is just kind of the next escalation in that ladder. And it looks to me as if we're gearing up for war with Iran on behalf of Israel once again. So I'm not happy. And this is exactly what he campaigned against. This is what really differentiated him from his competitors in 2015, which I wasn't even a supporter of his back then.
Right.
I'm sure you recall in South Carolina when he read Jeb Bush, the Riot Act, and said, your brother lied us into Iraq. WMDs were fake, blah, blah, blah. He really stood out, and people forget this, but he got booed for that because in those debates, it's the donor class that is largely sitting in those seats. But everybody at home was cheering because everybody at home has a relative that fought in Iraq or Afghanistan, and they realized took them way too long, but they finally realized that it was all based off of lies. And I really believe that was what not only set Trump apart, but really put him in the White House, and also was what got most of the libertarians to consider him a potential ally, and we were wrong.
I think there are two different types of Trump supporters right now in this aspect. There are people like you who voted for his agenda. You liked it. Whether I agree or disagree with you is not the point, but this is what you decided to vote for. You wanted to vote for Clinton, America First agenda. You didn't want him starting any new wars. You didn't want any regime change. And this is not what he's doing. This is not an America First agenda. And now you're saying to yourself, wait a second, this isn't what I voted for. I respect that. Even though I might disagree with you on the vote for Donald Trump, I respect the fact that, hey, you're willing to say he lied. He misled us, right? what would you say to still a large base of his contingency of supporters that are defending this, particularly, this Venezuela takeover? What would you say to them?
Well, first I'll steelman their argument just so they understand I'm not being some reflexive hater. They're arguing, hey, this is our hemisphere. This is different. This is not a multi-decade war. This is, at least this is being overt. This is about resources. This is about getting Iranian influence out of Venezuela. Like there are differences from the Iraq war. So let me just get that out of the way, because a lot of people, kind of straw man my opposition to this as saying, I don't understand the differences. It's like, I do understand the differences, but let's just be honest. This is far from a done deal. I mean, you don't just kidnap the president of a sovereign nation in the middle of the night, regardless of whatever your concerns are about election integrity, and think that the people are just going to not just the people, but the existing government apparatus is going to accept this. Like, as of now, it seems as if like the diehard MAGA folks believe that you can just kidnap an unpopular president in a nation and then everything's fixed. And it's like, it's not going to be that simple, folks. I mean, Trump has already come out the day after saying, we're going to run it. I mean, that's nation building. That's explicitly what he ran against. I just think this is very reminiscent actually to like the shock and awe campaign against Iraq, where it's like, oh, it's over. We won. It's like it's not over. It's just literally just begun.
See, Clint, you made a good point there. And this is why, and you're right, there are a lot of differences, obviously, between the war in Iraq and what's transpired here, of course. But there are some similarities too, right? A lot of right-wingers, not you, a lot of people on the right, paid influencers are putting up videos, some of them fake videos, of right Venezuelans that are celebrating. And and you actually pointed that out, which I really appreciate, by the way, fake videos like Cat Turd and others. And I just think it's really important for people like you to do that. And that's why I praise you for doing that, because even though we might disagree fundamentally on some policy issues and stuff and things revolving on Trump, pointing out other people on your side that are putting out fake, false information. You've also criticized Nick Shirley, which I have as well, which I also think is very important. So I want to ask you about that too. Grifters, as I would call them, right? I think you would agree with me. Somebody like a Nick Sortor or a Shirley. What do you make of these people hanging out outside of Tim Walz's mansion, claiming that there's fraud here and making allegations that are unsubstantiated? This is a problem, I think, in your party. And listen, I'm not saying there aren't grifters on the left either, but you've called out these people. What do you think of like the Nick Shirleys of the world?
Well, I mean, I don't know Nick personally, but I'll just speak broadly to what I see. You call them grifters. I call them paid propagandists. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. It's much worse. Like, the reason I got into this world, the reason I became an independent podcaster, the reason I started Liberty Lockdown was because I hated the media, because they were such liars, like profligate liars, like consistent, unapologetic, unabashed liars. So when I see people in my world doing the same thing that, the Fox Newses and the CNNs did to lead us into a bunch of unconstitutional, immoral, illegal, just horrific wars, it literally makes my blood boil. Like I get so angry at it. And some of these people are my friend. I mean, Alex Jones, like, I can't believe that he was sharing that video. I'm honestly appalled by it.
Are you surprised at that though? Because I mean, I didn't know you were friends with Alex Jones, but I've had his ex-wife.
Let me back up. I'm not really his friend. Yeah. I've done a couple shows with him, but I'm like a guy that I know and I like. You know what I mean? I
understand that, but like to me, and I don't know him like you do, but to me, when I hear somebody like that who says the Sandy Hook shooting didn't happen, I'm not surprised at anything. I think when someone shows that sort of lack of a moral compass for clicks, because that's exactly why he did that, I don't believe anything he says. I mean, I don't know. That's just me. I think you lose all credibility when you are a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. He knows that event happened, but he did it for clicks, and that's why I don't have any respect for him.
Well, that's fair. Look, when you're in Alex's lane and you're like trying to be the most kind of out there on the cutting edge, you're going to get a lot of stories wrong. So by all means, it's every listener's decision to go, you got it so badly wrong that I'm out. I'm done with you. And so I totally respect that. But like for me, I don't really care about so much of the zany stuff that Alex says. What I cared about with Alex was that, like, he got 9/11 right. You know, he got a lot of things right, and he said it in advance of time, and he said we're being lied to, you know, to get us into these wars. And it just seems to me like instead of serving that role, which he served both pre and post 9/11, he is now serving the military propagandist role in the aftermath of the invasion. I mean, whatever you want to call it, in Venezuela. Right. He kind of had a similar take when it came to Iran too. It just seems to me as if like many of Alex's principles have been shelved on behalf of blind support of Donald Trump. Right. And it's sad. But just to circle back to the broader problem is that like these are real. I mean, the only thing we have in this world, you understand this, the only thing that you and I have in this world that differentiates us is that we tell the effing truth. And if we don't do that, then we're just as bad as every person that we attempted to replace in the corporate media. So that's why these people need to be called out. I'm unapologetic in doing so because I think that they're doing their audience a disservice, the movement a disservice, the country and the world a disservice, especially when you're talking about war propaganda. You are literally doing the world a disservice. So, you know, setting friendship aside, I gotta call it out for what it is.
No, I mean, I'm glad you're doing that. If you're just joining us, Clint Russell from the Liberty Lock podcast joining us right now. I have to ask you this question. If you had a moderate Democrat that you didn't hate running against Donald Trump tomorrow, would you have still voted the same way, knowing that what you know right now?
I mean, there's a chance I'd vote for Ro Khanna. There's a chance.
He's a good man. Yeah, he's a good man.
He's allied with my favorite congressman, which is Thomas Massie. You know, I'll just be straight with you. If it was a Massie Khanna or Khanna Massie ticket, I'd give it real consideration. Like, I'd give it way more consideration than I would, you know, Rubio Vance or something like that in the next go around. So
what if it's Gavin Newsom?
No.
So help me understand. Listen, I'm not a huge Gavin Newsom fan. I'm not going to sit here and coddle him either. But you've openly admitted this, right, Clint? I mean, you basically voted for a guy that did not keep really any of his promises, except for, you know, pardoning a bunch of January 6th insurrectionists. He certainly did that, and he's made his tech billionaire friends much richer. He's not an America First agenda. You know that. We've talked about what's taken place here in Venezuela. You've openly criticized him for some of the same things that I've criticized him for. So, help me understand. How do Democrats bring somebody like you in? Like, how do they say, okay, listen, this MAGA stuff, you know, we want you on our side? What is your criticism of the Democrats that you would want to see change from them to make you say, okay, I'm not necessarily going to change parties, but I cannot vote for a J.D. Vance?
Well, I mean, I think I'm already there that I'm probably not going to vote for the Republicans again. But in terms of like actually getting my vote for the Democrats, you guys would have to change a hell of a lot. I mean, the Democrat Party is, in my estimation, as guilty on most of the things that libertarians hate about our political system as the GOP is when it comes to insane spending. You got to also understand, I'm a California refugee. I was born and raised in San Diego. I spent 37 years there before fleeing to Florida during the lockdowns, which were totally at Gavin Newsom's mercy. And I think that was, I mean, to say it was a catastrophe is to put it very mildly. Now, I also place blame on Donald Trump for that era. So I'm not putting all of it at the feet of Gavin Newsom, but you ask anybody who's born and raised in California whether or not they like Gavin Newsom. The vast majority of the people I talk to go, oh my God, no. I mean, this guy would be disastrous for the country. So you asked me about Gavin Newsom. It's like, well, if you're going to expect me to vote for Newsom, that ain't ever happening. Ever.
So would it just be just a non-vote? Like if it's J.D. Vance? Because right now it appears, Clint, I think you would agree with me that if the election, listen, I know there's a lot of time before now and then, but it appears as though Gavin Newsom and J.D. Vance would be the two front runners.
Yeah, well, I would have to be actually thoroughly convinced that J.D. Vance is not what he appears to be, which is a conduit for, Peter Thiel, Palantir. I'm not at all comforted by his support of all of these non-America first policies that his president has been, bringing to bear, and he has been openly defensive of. Like from my vantage point, the only way I would consider J.D. Vance is if he was like, here's all of the things that President Trump has done wrong. And that ain't going to happen. He's not going to come out and say that.
Right.
I hear you. He gives a lot of America. He gives better America first rhetoric than Trump does at this point. Yeah. But I'm not I'm not going to like fool me once. You can't fool me twice. You know, like that's where I'm at with it. So.
Understood. Like when you look at the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world, there are very few Republicans that have spoken out on Donald Trump and the disappointment of not an America First agenda. But you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene knew she wasn't going to win re-election, and there's a lot. And I do like Thomas Massie, by the way. I have a lot of respect for him, and I've agreed with him on a lot of different issues. But what do you make of so many MAGA Republicans, for lack of a better term, in D.C. that are yes people that are literally lying right now about, you know, going into Venezuela? They're saying something different than Donald Trump. Trump is basically admitting that this was about oil, where you have MAGA Republicans saying, well, no, this is about the Venezuelan people. And, you know, this guy was a really bad guy and we needed to get him out of there and we need to convict him. I mean, what would you say to those MAGA Republicans, elected officials, that are still lying?
Well, I'm sorry. So am I talking to the voters or am I talking to his cabinet that's lying?
I would say everybody in Washington, D.C., that is an elected official, that is a Republican, that is saying something different than what basically Donald Trump is saying, for the most part admitting that this was about oil. I mean, he's pretty much said that that's what this was about, right? I mean, yeah, he made some incendiary remarks. Well, we want to help the Venezuelan people. We know that's a load of crap, right? So we know that, Clint. But there are so many people on the right that are in D.C., elected officials, that are claiming, oh, this is great for the Venezuelan people, and this was about getting a bad guy out of office. What would you say to them?
Well, I would call them the frauds and liars that they are. You know, what's most irritating about it or gaslighting about it is that many of those same people you're referencing were on the Trump train because they were like, we're getting away from the regime change wars. We're getting away from the nation building. We're getting away from neoconservatism. So they're all frauds. I mean, they're all trying to stay in power, but they're all ultimately frauds, and they're all, you know, either owned by the military-industrial complex or just cowards. I don't know. Doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't make a difference. In effect, it creates the same dynamic that what happened is that the American people woke up to and realized after decades of being lied to about, you know, militarism and how it's to our benefit, and ultimately it was not at all. It was actually a catastrophe for not just us, but the world. But after decades of finally realizing it, what's happened, in effect, is that Donald Trump is the repackaging. MAGA has become the repackaging of neoconservatism under a more brazen messaging system that, yeah, we're just here to take the oil. You know, like it used to be, no, we're here to bring democracy. We're here to depose dictators. And it's like, nope, that's not what we're there for anymore. We're there for precious metals and oil. And it's like, oh, so this is just an unvarnished repackaging of neoconservatism. And somehow all of the people who oppose neoconservatism are on board with it. It makes me sick.
It makes me sick as well. What would you say to like a Marco Rubio when he's asked about, you know, this invasion, and they're calling it an act of law enforcement, right? They're saying, well, this was not taking over a country. This was just an act of law. And I said, oh, wait a second, over 100 people have lost their lives, number one. And then Marco Rubio is literally asked about this narco terrorist that they pardoned last month, former president who they pardoned last month, similar charges. And my third question, I know I'm throwing a lot at you here, but if this is about indictments, because Marco Rubio said, well, listen, this guy had indictments, then why wouldn't you arrest Benjamin Netanyahu? He's got indictments. Why wouldn't you arrest Vladimir Putin? He's got warrants out for his arrest. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, yeah. And I mean, Netanyahu was literally with Trump, 5 days ago at Mar-a-Lago on New Year's Eve. And he's got warrants out for his arrest all over the world. I mean, it's so laughable. But also, just consider the precedent that we're setting. I mean, you're basically saying that if you have which it's obviously the DOJ is controlled by the Trump administration, controlled by Trump. So it's like, all right, so now we just need an American president to get his AG to issue a warrant for the arrest of any leader all over the world. And now we don't need congressional authorization to go to war. Like, is anybody comfortable with that? If you are, you've lost your mind. So,
Tulsi Gabbard wasn't. She just made statements 2 months ago, right? You saw those comments, Clint. Yep. Where is she today? She just said that, we can't do this. Regime change. We can't, I'm paraphrasing. She just said this 2 months ago. Where are these people, right? Where are they?
The truth is that she realizes if she speaks out against this, she'll lose her job. I'm not saying that she shouldn't. I would love to see her do it. And it would actually make me a very big fan of hers. But I also understand that, that's the world that we're in now, is that if JD Vance were to come out and say he didn't agree with it, he'd be gone. Or he'd be removed from at least contention for the next go around. And it's like, it's just a sickness. I mean, it really comes down to the American people demanding better. And as best I can tell, probably half of Trump's base is just not thinking critically about any of this. They're just like, hey, look how quick it was. It's great. Big booms. Like I'm disappointed.
Well, Clint, I'll say this once again. I think it's really important that people like you speak truth, and whether you voted for Trump or not, you have a large platform, and I think it's important for people to hear you, and maybe you'll get to some people. I don't know, and this isn't me just saying, well, Brian, you're just a Trump hater. Yeah, I can't stand the man, but at the same time, it's important for people like you, more important than for people like me, people like you who voted for Donald Trump, to speak truth to power and to call this out, whether it be right-wing grifters or Trump, going into Venezuela and doing what he's done. I just think what you're doing is extremely important, and I'm grateful that there are people like you out there. And quite frankly, Clint, I wish there were more on your side. I really do.
You and me both.
Yeah.
But look, I got to give credit to a lot of people in this world have been harshly critical of Trump. That Dave Smith, another one of my good buddies, Tom Woods, Scott Horton.
I like Dave Smith. Dave Smith's a funny guy.
Yeah, all of the libertarians who didn't support Trump up until this most recent election because we were also concerned about World War III in Russia-Ukraine dynamics. Look, I'll end with that. I'll just say this. If you can actually get the Democrats to embrace the anti-war movement that they used to be, under the George Bush administration, but if they're going to continue to push the neoliberal perspective of, we have to defend the rules-based international order, and therefore we have to basically risk World War III and nuclear holocaust in Ukraine, it's a non-starter for the libertarians. So I'll just leave you with that. That is the thing that we're most concerned about, is that intervention abroad has to end. We are going bankrupt. It's going to be a catastrophe for us economically, principally, morally, all across the board. We have to stop this process. And I might add, what we did in Venezuela is the same thing that Putin did in Ukraine. It's the same thing that China is probably going to do to Taiwan. It's the same thing that Israel did to Gaza. It's the same thing that Israel is probably going to do to Iran within minutes. Like, it's coming soon, in my opinion. This is not the world I want to be a part of.
Agree. We can't roll out the red carpet for Vladimir Putin on American soil either. I think we would agree on that. That's not going to get us anywhere either. But I agree with you. As a whole, I agree with what you just said. Clint, before I let you go, can you give out your information? And I do appreciate you being here, by the way. Can you give out your information? How do people follow your podcast and follow you on social media?
Yeah, Clint Russell's the name, at Liberty Lock Pod on X. Liberty Lockdown is the show. YouTube, Spotify, everywhere else. So just search Liberty Lockdown. You'll find me. And thank you. Keep up the good fight, man.
Thank you, Clint. You too as well, my friend. I appreciate your time. There you go. That's Clint, everybody. Clint Russell. Liberty Lock Pod is how you find him on social media. Even though I don't agree with Clint on a number of different political issues, I have respect for the fact that he's willing to call out Donald Trump and his actions, whether it be Venezuela or the war in Ukraine. And he's calling out these right-wing grifters too. And, this is a guy that has hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. It's really important for people like him. Even though I'm not going to agree with him on everything, I think it's really important for him to do so and do that. So I appreciate Clint taking the time to join us.